The Opel Astra K, debuting in 2015, as it turned out a few years later, was the last compact model designed by General Motors. The next generation is already related to the French compacts of the former PSA group. Let's see if the latest offering from the American-German classic is worthy of our trust. Engines and gearboxes. The Astra K initially featured a modified engine lineup from its predecessor, led by the 1.4 turbo petrol engine and the 1.6 CDTI diesel engine, also found in other models. The only engine used directly from its predecessor without any modifications was the 136 horsepower B16DTH diesel, paired with either a manual or a 6-speed automatic transmission. Despite their striking similarities, the other engines are not entirely identical. For example, the 1.4 turbo, designated DIT, features direct injection, which was only found in the 1.6 in the Astra J. The only petrol engine with indirect injection is the naturally aspirated 1.4 with 100 horsepower, offered from the 2015 to 2018 model years. In 2019, all four-cylinder petrol engines, 1.4 and 1.6, were discontinued, replaced by new three-cylinder units. The entry-level petrol engine was the 1.2 turbo. A new 1.4 turbo variant with 145 horsepower was also introduced, paired with a CVT automatic transmission. From 2019, only the new 1.5D engine, also a three-cylinder, remained in the diesel lineup. Most engines were paired with the iconic 6-speed M32 manual gearbox. The exceptions were the 1.2 turbo with the M22 gearbox and the 1.0 turbo with the F17 gearbox. Opel also used several automatic transmissions. The 1.0 turbo was equipped with an automated manual gearbox, EasyTronic. Larger petrol engines with power outputs of 150 horsepower and above were fitted with a 6-speed automatic with a torque converter, or, in the 1.4, 145 horsepower variant from 2019, a CVT. Quite good according to those who used it. It has 7 programmed gears. In the diesel range, the automatic was only available with the 1.6 with 136 horsepower until 2019, or the 1.5 with 122 horsepower. In the latter version, however, it was a new generation 9-speed automatic, working best of all. Which engine to choose? Let's start with the petrol engines, which saw a significant change in 2019. From that point on, no engines other than the 3-cylinder 1.2 turbo and 1.4 turbo were offered. Choosing between them is made easier because if you're looking for the best possible dynamics or an automatic transmission, the only option left is the 1.4. This engine is young and rare, so it's difficult to say anything meaningful about it at this point. The same applies to the 1.2 turbo engine, which only in its most powerful 145 horsepower version matches the performance of the 1.4. These engines are growly and relatively loud, but they consume very little fuel. It's important to remember that this isn't the 1.2 PureTech engine from Peugeot. This mistake is entirely understandable, as the merger between Opel and PSA was announced in 2017, leading some to believe the new unit came from the French manufacturer. This is especially true given that the displacement is exactly the same. The surefire choices are the supercharged and naturally aspirated 4-cylinder 1.4 engines. The non-supercharged version excels on gas and handles well on the road. Its 100 horsepower translates better into performance in a lighter car compared to the Astra J. The supercharged 1.4 initially had some rough running, but a software update helped. However, there are no issues with the turbochargers and manifolds, as was the case with the older 1.4 turbo. Drivers with higher expectations can opt for the refined 1.6 turbo engine. This engine isn't very popular, so it's difficult to get definitive reviews. Recurring problems include coolant and oil leaks. A major advantage of these engines, like the 1.4, is the chain-driven timing system, which remains durable for now. When choosing a pre-2019 petrol engine, I'd recommend a reasonable 1.4 turbo, preferably with 150 horsepower. It's dynamic and fuel-efficient and handles both manual and automatic transmissions efficiently. Moving on to the diesels, there's not much choice here either. Either the pre-facelift 1.6 or the facelifted 1.5. I'll point out right away that not much is known about the 1.5, but the lack of information about faults should be taken as a good omen. Opinions about the 1.6 CDTI are polarizing. For some, this engine ruined their lives, as its complex design and fragile timing belt can both drive them crazy and devastate their budgets. Replacing the timing chain, which is located on the gearbox side, is particularly problematic. Furthermore, the engine is oil-hungry, can have significant problems with exhaust gas aftertreatment, and its injectors are highly sensitive to fuel quality. Other drivers who haven't had any major problems can only praise the 1.6 CDTI engine, as it's very smooth, quiet, dynamic, and economical. The 136 horsepower version with automatic transmission is a good combination. It's worth remembering that the bi-turbo versions, 150 and 160 horsepower, have 2 turbochargers, which is not cheap to repair. If I were to recommend a diesel engine, it would be the newer the car and the lower the mileage, the better. I'd venture to the 1.5 diesel engine due to its potential refinement. Unfortunately, I'm concerned about the highly advanced lean NOx technology exhaust gas treatment system, which uses a special catalytic converter combined with a traditional SCR system. Typical faults. I'll start with what experienced owners of older Astra J might expect. This concerns the M32 gearbox, 6-speed manual, which was a source of problems and costs in older cars. The Astra K has experienced some cases of difficult gear shifting and noisy bearings, but so far it's not as unreliable as before. A fairly common problem, however, is the failure of the central slave cylinder. For now, the bigger concerns lie with other areas of the car. One of these is the safety systems package, which requires periodic calibration of the front camera. Users complain about non-functioning LED headlights. A new one costs around 5,000 euros. It's cheaper to buy a pair. Used ones from wrecked cars cost around euro 1,000 to 2,000. However, before you spend a fortune, it's worth visiting a repair shop that repairs such headlights. It's also a good idea to check the cost of a new headlight at an authorized service center. Users also have issues with the parking sensors and the multimedia system, which isn't particularly responsive. The final drawback of the Astra K is the durability of the suspension. Knocking noises are common in the front, caused by worn shock absorbers. Good quality replacement front axle shock absorbers cost around 450 euros each. Rear shock absorbers are much cheaper, around 250 euros. On the rear axle, almost identical to the Astra J, the shock absorbers and springs are mounted separately. A relatively expensive component is the triple silent block connecting the transverse links, around 250 euros, which must be replaced if knocking noises are heard from the rear. At the front, there are classic McPherson struts with a single lower control arm. A good quality part costs around 700 euros, where the bushings and ball joints can be replaced. Operating costs. The operating costs of an Astra K will be as high as the engine's failure rate and the level of equipment you buy. Unfortunately, the 1.6-liter diesel engine can be very expensive. On the other hand, choosing the relatively simple 1.41 horsepower engine ensures that you won't experience any unexpected problems. High-quality aftermarket parts are quite expensive, but they can be better than the originals. Maintaining the driver assistance systems in good working order is expensive. The standard tire size on many Astra K versions is 205/55 R16, which is relatively inexpensive. Mid-range winter tires cost around euro 350 to 400 per pair, and summer tires around 300 euros per pair. All-season tires won't cost much more. For the optional 225/45 R17 size, the price difference is slight, favoring 16-inch tires.